Hey viewers, you're watching the Savera and I'm Vidhi Joshi. US President Donald Trump has announced that he has signed letters to 12 nations outlining new tariff measures on goods they export to the United States. Speaking during his aboard Air Force One en route to New Jersey for American Independence Day celebrations, Trump stated that the letters, described as "take it or leave it" offers are expected to be sent out on Monday, that is July 7. He did not disclose the names of the nations involved, saying the identities will be revealed only on Monday. Trump emphasized that the tariffs outlined in the letters would vary depending on the nation and the type of goods involved, with the new rates potentially reaching as high as 70% for some nations. These tariffs are expected to take effect beginning August 1. The move comes ahead of the July 9 deadline, which marks the end of a 90-day suspension of elevated tariffs that was announced in April to allow space for negotiations. At that time, the US had introduced a base tariff of 10% on most imported goods, with some nations facing proposed rates of up to 50%. These higher tariffs were posed to enable trade talks with key partners. So far, the United States of America has concluded trade assessment with the United Kingdom and Vietnam. Washington and Beijing have also agreed to temporarily reduce their respective elevated tariff as negotiations continue, though no final deal has been reached. Meanwhile, prospects for a trade deal with Japan remain uncertain. Trump recently suggested that an agreement with Tokyo may not be forthcoming, accusing Japan and other countries of exploiting the US economy for decades, which he claims makes negotiations difficult. India, which is among the countries actively engaged in talks with the United States, has yet to finalize an agreement. A high-level Indian delegation led by Chief Negotiator Rajesh Agarwal visited Washington from June 26 to July 2 in a bid to strike an interim trade deal. However, no conclusive agreement was reached, particularly over the sensitive issue of agricultural and dairy market access, which the US is publishing for. For India, these sectors involve the livelihoods of millions of small farmers and are thus considered politically and economically sensitive. Despite the lack of a breakthrough, there remains a possibility that an interim agreement could be finalized at the highest political levels before the July 9 deadline. India, however, is firm in its stance that it would not rush to any trade pact under external pressure. Union Minister of Commerce and Trade Piyush Goyal reiterated that India is prepared to make trade deals in its national interest, but never negotiates trade deals with a deadline. While India is hoping to secure an exemption from the looming 26% tariffs through a deal, it is simultaneously pressing for favorable terms for its labor-intensive exports, including textiles, leather, and footwear. President Donald Trump's decision to move ahead with tariff letters signals a hardening of the US position as the temporary reprieve on higher tariffs comes to an end. By signing and dispatching these letters, the administration is signaling that unless trade partners agree to new terms, significant tariffs will be imposed starting next month. Trump, maintaining a characteristic blunt tone, said, "The letters are better. It is much easier to send a letter," indicating the preference for delivering tariff ultimatums directly rather than prolonged negotiations. With only a few days left before the July 9 deadline, global markets and policymakers are closely watching the unfolding developments as trade tensions threaten to escalate yet again.
Maybe the most important question. She gave a horrible answer to it, so they took an answer from another part of the interview and they inserted it. Nobody's ever seen that before. So I think they made a wise decision to settle.
And is that $16 million for the ads, is that part of contingency for your administration to approve the merger or the sale of the company?
No, it has nothing to do with that. This is totally separate. This was when I was running. This had nothing to do with what was taking place in government. This is when I was running. This was essentially the night before the election. And they did this, and we thought it was despicable, actually.
On tariffs, countries that don't get a letter right away and then you haven't made a deal.
So we're going to start sending letters out to various countries starting tomorrow. We'll probably have 10 or 12 go out tomorrow. And over the next few days, I think by the 9th they'll be fully covered. And they'll range in value from maybe 60 or 70% tariffs to 10 and 20% tariffs. But they're going to be starting to go out sometime tomorrow. We've done the final form, and it's basically going to explain what the countries are going to be paying in tariffs. And it's very important. It's a lot of money for the country, but we're giving them a bargain. Because if I went by the true deficits or by other ways of measuring, it could be a lot more. We don't want to. I don't want to stretch it too much. We want to keep it pretty reasonable. And I think it's very reasonable.
What countries will you be sending those letters to first?
We're going to be sending, what you're going to see tomorrow, I'd rather give it tomorrow, but we have probably 10 to 12 tomorrow. And then after that, we'll be sending 10 or 12 a day. And as we get along, as we get to the smaller countries, we're pretty much going to keep the tariffs the same.
Are there any countries that will have a little flexibility with that deadline?
Not really. They'll start to pay on August 1st. The money will start to come into the United States on August 1st, okay, in pretty much all cases. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
That's all for now. Stay tuned to the Savera for more updates. Do like, comment and subscribe to the channel.